we left in the bus about 4 hours late, and we drove and drove and drove and drove and drove.
And we drove, and I read a book.
Until we finally broke down, as is tradition on the first day of tour.
And we just drove into Indiana. It was late, and I was gonna get some diesel.
And I was sort of asleep in the back of the bus, and Mom was driving, and she pulls into this fuel station. And so she gets out, and she goes and looks at the pump, and it's one of those pumps for diesel that doesn't take your credit card. You have to go inside and pay at the register. Well, no one's at the register at 2 in the morning. It's all locked up and all the lights are out.
And when I started the engine off again, it made this really screechy sound.
And we were looking around going, okay, we can probably get about 100 feet or so. So where's a good place within 100 feet that we can spend the night? Because we have no brakes or power steering. And so I saw these big bay doors. I'm like, that's a mechanic shop. We should get over there. Because when they get here in the morning, they're going to be able to look at it and they're going to know better than I can what's wrong with it and what we need to do to fix it.
But they couldn't fix it.
So he called a tow truck, and the tow truck came and hooked up to the bus and lifted it up, and we drove a little bit farther down the road. I think it couldn't have been much more than a mile. Just one exit down the interstate in the right direction, conveniently, and stopped at another gas station that had a full service station that they could fix that at. And so he pulls in and drops the bus down, and we get a mechanic out there who's looking at it and goes, oh, this is your problem. And it was that pump. And so he's like, well, shouldn't be too bad of a fix because there's nothing wrong with the pump. It was just the bolts holding it on had broken. Finally, we got it all set back up, and it started up, and we tested it out, and it worked great. So we were back on the road, headed west again towards St. Louis, and so we drove through St. Louis.
And we drove and drove.
And then we drove all the way up to Nebraska, the K-State, where we had a show the next day.
And made it within, probably an hour of Nebraska, and before we stopped and spent the night, and we could get showers in the morning and be fresh and ready for the students at Willa Catheter Elementary.
And started setting up.
Hey everyone, we're here at Willa Catheter Elementary School in Omaha, Nebraska, setting up for our historical show. They're setting up for lunch, which is also very important, which is explaining all the tables here. So yeah, I think we go on stage at like 1 o'clock, so we've got everything set up, just finished sound check, and we're going to get some pizza.
And that show went really, really well. It was a great group of kids. I'd say we had probably about 400 kids there for that audience. They were a really great group. The show went really well, and after the show we packed back up and headed west again.
Then we drove some more and went to Green River for our cousin Riley's graduation.
My cousin Riley was graduating that day, so we went to go see his graduation ceremony, and he was, one of the top of his class and gave a little speech, which was wonderful and very short.
I can't remember quite what he said, but his speech went something like,
"Don't be stupid."
Tried to start our bus the next day so we could leave, and it wouldn't start.
Turned the key, and the bus turned over and turned over and turned over, but the engine would never catch, which was a little strange. And at that point I was thinking, well, if it's not one thing, it's another. What's wrong with it this time?
So we got on the bus ready to go, and it wouldn't start.
The other relatives pull in, and so they're looking at it, and I'm telling them what the problem is, and they're looking over it going, I don't see anything wrong with it, so why don't you, crank the engine and show us what the problem sounds like. And I got in, put the key in, turned it, started right up. No problem at all.
And we were off.
So then we drove and we drove and we drove all the way to Idaho, and stopped a little bit and visited relatives and drove on.
and then we drove again.
So we got from there all the way to Portland, and so here we are in Portland, ready to do our camp coming up on Tuesday.
That's going to be an adventure.
There's 78 kids, and I was calling around trying to get violins for 78 kids to do fiddle camp, and I called lots of places, and most places said, well, they could get me maybe a few of not very good violins because they're still out for school. And I called Kennedy Violins in Vancouver, Washington, which is right across the river from Portland, and they are donating 78 violins for free to these students for this camp. And all the kids were so excited last week when they took their violins home. I can see God's hand all over getting 78 free violins for kids. So obviously He's at work, and He's, wanting to give these kids a good experience. So glad to be a part of it.